Alright, finally. See if I can get back in. It never fails. Every single time I live stream, my phone dies as soon as every time. I don't get it. I never do. Alright. There we go. Alright, we're back. So guys, today we're going to be talking about finesse fishing. Kind of, you know, we're in those colder winter months now, and it's going to get way harder to catch bass for anybody. But when we're out there, you just got to remember that you're not always going to be catching them 24/7. But when you can get on a school of them, and you can find, you know, where the fish are, where they're feeding or what, and it is fun. It can be, I mean, it can be pretty, you know, pretty, how would you call, just, I mean, just really exciting, because there's a lot of times where, you know, you're just winter fishing is so dang dreading, and you're out there for hours on end, just cold, not catching nothing. But definitely got to rely on some electronics. It helped big time. Even for us, you know, bank fishermen and things like that. If you guys haven't, you know, tried out like the deeper balls, they work really good for finding deeper spots in, you know, in your local waters, just for, you know, a lot of those bait fish and forage are gonna be down towards the bottom, and they're going to try to find a warmer area when it comes to, you know, the winter months. And if the forage and all the bait fish are going to be down there, then, you know, the bigger fish are going to have to go that way as well. I mean, basically just everything. A lot of the bass just are heading that way. You know, they got to stay warm. They got to wait it out till the warmer months. So we're talking about some finesse fishing, just kind of how I like to go over some things, and hopefully it helps you guys catch some fish. And yeah, hopefully we can get back out on the water here in the next couple days or so, and possibly catch a big old bass. I've had really warm weathers for the last week, actually. Probably, I would say maybe getting down to just barely 30s to 32 degrees at night, and it's warming up in the daytime to 45, 46 sometimes. I even saw a day last week where it was 50, so we're still having pretty warm weathers right now. Probably a lot of snow around us has been melting away because of it, but it's still, so the fish are kind of still in that semi-active, but they're wanting to find, you know, a warmer area. So once again, that's where your electronics come in big time, very, very handy. Unfortunately, this last trip that I took, we had a little incident where we hit a cattle guard, and it ended up bouncing the battery out of the back of the boat down into the bottom of the boat, disconnected both of our power and our ground to our fish finder and structure scan. So that was a huge bummer. We had no electronics that day out. We maybe possibly could have got away with fixing it right there in the water, but it was just better off to just wait and do it right. So we fished that whole day without being able to really get on a hole or find some of those bass that were feeding, which it wasn't a bad day, that's for sure. It was still really nice out. Caught a couple trout, but nothing fancy. So definitely does pay to have that. Oh man, I don't know how many times I'm gonna have to do this. I think this thing's just gonna keep shutting off on me. Well, sorry for the interruptions, guys. Probably nobody stayed tuned into this because it keeps getting disconnected. But My phone keeps dying on me. I'm not really sure why. I have everything plugged in, so shouldn't die. But anyways, let's get through this. Let's talk about some baits. So, to begin with, probably one of the most commonly thrown in the winter that I know of is going to be the Ned rig. Everybody pretty much has heard of it nowadays, and it works. I mean, you definitely got to find the fish, and you got to be patient about it, but they do work. So, let's get this brought out here. One of these little fellas here. So, it's just, you know, part of a Senko, part of a worm, whatnot, and put a little mushroom head on it. Lightweight, works pretty well, makes it kind of, you know, slower fall. A lot of the times you'll get picked up on the fall. And, I mean, you just fish it really, really slow, and on those days that you're just not getting bites, you just dead stick it. You just don't move that thing. And pretty much after that, if you're still not getting bites, just like, you know, good old Tactical Bassin says, take a picture of the sunset, because it's about all there is to do after that. But so Ned rigs, got lots of those. They work well. Another one that I really, really, really recommend throwing, and is one of my favorites in the winter, is a shaky head. And I go from throwing most of the time like a 1/4 ounce to 3/8 ounce shaky head in the summer and the springtime, whatnot, because around then they're used to stuff, you know, dropping off the trees really quick and just, you know, almost darting in the water, and they just pick it up quicker than, you know, just quicker than crud. And if you're not, you know, when it's wintertime, they're going to be slowing down. Obviously, they're not going to be wanting to just come bolting out of the water at something that just barely just hit the water. So you're going to want that ladder presentation. You're going to want something to slowly fall in the water. And obviously, you know, you're going to want something you can still maybe get a little bit of casting distance out of here, and not super, super lightweight. So maybe 1/4 ounce, but I even usually go a little bit lighter than 1/4 ounce, sometimes into 1/8 ounce, but 1/8 ounce almost too light. But right around there, and just kind of play with it, you know, with what the fish are really wanting. But definitely take it into consideration that lighter weight, that lighter jig head, a little bit lighter fall to everything is going to be that much better. And you're gonna get way more hookups from you know, from the fish, and you're just gonna have a better day overall. So I'll jump up to like a you know, like an 1/8 ounce or 1/4 ounce style, just small, really lightweight shaky head or something like that. This guy's in a 1/4 ounce, but you know, something like that, just a little shaky head, like a purple finesse worm. You want to use those, you know, like more straight tail finesse worms on these shaky heads. They pair up well, and they seem to work the best together. You can use these shaky heads with craws. I have in the past, and just it's more of like a springtime, summertime type of bait on a shaky head. You'll get bit on it a little bit easier. You know, throwing some different style baits in the summer and in the winter, because they're not as picky. Or in the summer and the springtime, but in the winter they definitely get a little bit pickier, and you want to throw something that you really is going to have just a really good falling presentation to it, and all that. So that's paired up with let's see, Bucktail Johnny's little finesse worm on there. That's in like a purple. It's kind of like I want to say it's one of their like new little signature colors that they sent me. Kind of a little bag that I got out of Red Gills, my Red Gills backpack that they hooked it up with. So anyways, but I rigged that guy weedless, and Just throw that, lightly in there and let it sink down to the bottom. Sit there for a little bit, and I'll give it a little pop up off the bottom. Let it sink back down. Just let it sit, and just work it across the bottom, but just very, very lightly. And if you're noticing that you're getting, your tail bits off, your little tail's bitten off a bunch or whatnot, just downsize. Just take, most of that worm that you were just throwing, and maybe even the portion that had gotten bit off, grab a new worm and just slap it on there, but a lot, way, way smaller, and wait for that bite. But when you feel that first initial bite, then, wait a few more seconds, tell yourself like there he is, and then set the hook. Just give it a little bit longer for that fish to maybe take a second bite, and then that's when you'll get that hook right in the top of the mouth, right where you want it, and you'll get them in. You just gotta work with them and whatnot, and sometimes they're really, really, really hard to get to want to munch it, at least in my area. So I know everybody who's out there winter fishing and whatnot is just probably sometimes having some rough days. Here's a really, really recommend and like big time. And this is the Reaction Innovation Flirt Worm, and got that guy on an owner. It's a little shaky head. Works really, really well. Pairs up nicely, and they match color pretty well too. So that's one that I really like to use. It's got a red and green flake to it, so it actually kind of mimics the sunfish pattern pretty well, and seems to work really good in those bodies of water for largemouth and smallmouth too. So I like using those. When they are on really, really munchy days and you want to upsize the bait a little bit, try to go for a little bit bigger, smallmouth or whatnot, you can jump up, and I like to throw the bullworm, the green pumpkin bullworm, and I'll actually cut most of the worm off, because those come in a big 10-inch worm, but I cut most of the worm, I want to say 3 inches off the main worm, and I'll use it as a Ned rig. They work great as a little Ned rig, basically. Your 3-incher right there, and they have that open pour technology with the salt and whatnot. So before I give it a cast out there, I'll actually squish my bait a little bit, get some of that salt to come out right off the bat, and it just seems to be money almost right off the bat. First couple pitches in, let it sit there for a little bit. Fish comes, takes a look at it, browse around a little bit, give it a good pop. Almost 80-90% of the time on that first pop, I'll get a nibble or a bite, and then I'll let it sit again, and I'll feel a second bite, and that's when I'll set the hook, and it works pretty dang well. So give that a shot. That open pour technology is definitely a big helper a lot of the time. So that's a good one to try. But I mean, don't hesitate to just grab a bag of Cinco's. I got like a whole little Ziploc baggie of Cinco's and stuff that I have too, that you can rig up shaky head style. If you're feeling that they're picking off the bottom, they're munching craws, stuff like that, they're still pretty actively feeding, you can go ahead and throw some of the two that I pretty much stick to mainly in my bag are the Riot Little Fuzzy. They come in this 3.5. One of my favorite colors is this Slayer color. You guys can see that, but yeah, it's the Slayer color, and then of course the Crankbaits Bandito Bug. I do chop this thing down a little bit sometimes. I'll put it on a jig, little things like that. Just give it a little bit more, Once in a while, I shorten it down a little bit. So if Crankbaits comes out with like a little bit smaller Bandito Bug, I think it'd be money for smallmouth. That's for sure. Really, really good. I have tried their drag and drop too, and it works pretty decent. I'm not a huge drop shot fan, and I seem to catch bigger fish on like cross style, jigs and things like that. I've caught most of my pretty big fish on these actually, just 3.5 Riot Little Fuzzies. So I really, really enjoy those. But another good bait to throw on the Ned rig is these Z-Man Elastics. I'm really getting pretty familiar with these, and they are a dang good bait to throw. A lot of people have their doubts. They have their their say so on these baits, and you're always going to get a good, a bad. You're always going to get different reviews on all these baits, but you're not really going to know your own. I feel like your own style or just what the fish are going to want. So you can't just stick to one bait your whole life, because it's not always going to work. That's for sure. But I've really been trying a lot of these out lately, and I really like them. I love the Elastec technology that they have in them, and being buoyant, so they actually float. Works amazing on the Ned rig. This is basically just the starting. This is the big starter, I feel like, for the Ned rig, that really make it stand out a lot better. You can use some of those deeper weights and still have that bait stand on end because of the buoyancy. So that helps big time. But then we're gonna switch it up just a tad and talk about some jerk baits. So everybody knows when it comes to the winter bite, a lot of people like throwing jerk baits year round, springtime, summertime, just whenever the chance, really. And if they feel like it's a good bite. But say one of the main times that I throw, it's definitely during the winter. Coming from that fall transition into winter, you get a lot of fish that will follow like that bait, clean up right next to the bank. I had a bass this last let's see, it's been probably a couple months, or not a month, about a month now. Yeah, about a month. That followed my bait just right up to the rock right next to that I was standing on. This is probably a good 2-pound smallmouth. Unfortunately, my GoPro died right before I caught the fish, so that was a bummer. My buddy Zach ended up getting it on his GoPro though, so might get the film from him. But anyways, and yeah, I led him all the way up to the bank basically with my jerkbait. He just didn't want to commit to it. But I saw the fish coming in, so knew where he was, and just grabbed my other pole that was next to me, had a jig tied on, threw it in there. As soon as it hit the water and started floating down, he just munched it. So caught that little guy. That was super cool, kind of just being able to sight fish it and see him. But they work. I mean, jerk baits, I caught a pretty dang nice trout on one too. But during those cold winter months, it definitely helps to get a little bit deeper diving or a slow sinking jerk bait. And it really helps mimic, a dying bait fish, or something like that coming, basically you just very lightly letting that thing sink down, and then a couple of jerks in, so it kind of flutters up toward the top. You get a bunch of bass or a school bass to kind of just sit right around them and just stare at it basically. And as soon as you give it that couple of jerks, you'll have a couple of them try to take it or try to fight for it. Sometimes they'll even try to fight it out of each other's mouth. So it's crazy to see. And the smallmouth in my area are definitely aggressive enough to do that. You could maybe even double up on them sometimes. Yeah, definitely so. I love the Rapala, like the DT, or not DT, but their deeper diving series baits. The slow sinking. A lot of the ones I throw, you're gonna notice in some of my videos and whatnot, are like a light blue back. We have a lot of bait fish that are mainly herring in the area, and that's what a lot of the smallmouth feed on. So throw a lot of that, a lot of whites and kind of pearls with them. I really love the Mega Bass series, Vision 110s. They're not super, the deep diving. They're coming out with their Vision 110 plus 2s here pretty soon. Heard those are supposed to dive down into like the 20-foot region, so that's going to be super handy. And so I'm going to be picking up some of those, maybe like a few of them. Because just the bodies of water that I fish, it gets dang deep, and those bass get down there, definitely. So just need something to get down nice and deep and be able to get to them, to pull them out. But yeah, some of the random baits I like to throw, kind of deal. Some of the finesse style baits. go through. Another good one for the Ned rigs is these little robo worm deadlies. This is the, let's see, the Aaron's green pumpkin. It's a great, dang well. Always your kind of classic. I pretty much never leave home without it during the winter time. Is good old Strike King coffee tubes. I throw many different colors of these guys. This bag actually has a bunch of different colors in it. But I'll throw green pumpkin, red flake. I'll throw the candy. I want to say it's like a watermelon candy. And one of my favorites is their black. It's like I can't even remember the name of it exactly, but it's like a black tube with like a purple and gold flake to it. And that's one of my favorites for a winter smallmouth. It works amazingly. And if you've never tried it, Spike It Dip and Glow makes, just the chartreuse dip and glow. You can dip their tentacles in some of that chartreuse dip and glow, and man, that stuff works dang well. It it just coats it, makes it really, stanky. They're gonna be more reliant on some of their, second senses besides, their eyesight and stuff like that, just because they're down a lot deeper and they see different and than we do. They have a different like color palette than we do, so they see a little bit different. But just mainly being able to heighten some of their other senses makes them really react to that. So that's one thing I've noticed works really well, is using a scent during the wintertime also. Some of the scents that I throw are this is the Spike It Dip and Glow. If you guys don't know, it's a garlic. A lot of people like to use it. I've heard for catfish and stuff, but it works really great for bass. So that's some good stuff to try out. And then the other one that I use is this Liquid Mayhem in a shad scent, and they make like a bass attractant scent also. But I really like the shad scent. I got this one sent to me in a mystery tackle box, so big old shout out to Carl's for that. But this stuff is big time helper right there. Worked really good during like pre-spawn also. I caught some decent fish on it on pre-spawn, where it was like I fished 2 bait areas that only caught like probably at the biggest like couple 3-pound fish, and it seemed like every time I would throw a little bit of Liquid Mayhem on it, I would seem to end up hitting the bigger fish. I'm not sure why, but it was like they just wanted that a little bit, something a little bit more. So sometimes a little bit extra, even during, pre-spawn, spawn, hitting a bait that's you've been getting blown up on all day with it. Throw a little bit of juice on it and see if you get blown up by a bigger fish, because sometimes they got the Burger King, but they want to switch it up and they want to go to Mickey D's and get a Happy Meal and whatever else. I don't know. So sometimes it's good to just throw some extra sauce on there. So those are the two that I like using. Kind of year round, whatever kind of deal. And then last thing I'm probably going to talk about, actually last 2 things. Crankbaits, not a big one. I don't really throw a whole lot of crankbaits during the wintertime. More kind of right after, I would say right in between like pre-spawn and spawn, I throw a little bit of crankbaits around quite a bit, and then right after spawn I'll throw crankbaits every now and again, basically. This year we're going to be fishing a couple tournaments. Hopefully the whole Mixon series with my buddy David. We'll see how that goes. Right now I'm just trying to figure out being able to afford to fish the series with him, but we'll see how it goes, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to do it. So we'll be doing that, and it's gonna be crazy. I've never really fished a whole lot of tournaments, so I'm gonna be trying a bunch of different patterns and just throwing a bunch of different baits around and bringing you guys along with me as I do it. I gotta put in the time and get this blogging thing down a lot better and get content out for you guys, because this is fun to me, and I want you guys to be able to experience it with me. So, anyways, moving on from that jazz, but we will be throwing some crankbaits. Just it's not a wintertime bait, really. I feel like you can throw some deep diving crankbaits, get down there into the strike zone sometimes, and they will munch it, but it's just not one that they really like to chase after, you know, big baits kind of thing. So, anyways, guys, moving on to the next finesse style bait is going to be a drop shot. So a lot of these smaller style. This is a half shell by Strike King, and you can get these in a lot of different colors. This one's kind of, you know, mimicking a small like kokanee bait fish, something like that, and basically just very small, you know, little bait just to get down there into the strike zone, and very lightly. I like to use a little bit lighter weight. If you're fishing, you know, rivers, things like that, you want to get down there a little bit quicker, then I can see using a little bit heavier. But if you're fishing like reservoirs or big body, you know, lake, stuff like that, then just the lightweight, it seems like the subtle fall really tends to strike a lot better. So I use usually like 1/8 ounce weight on there. Sometimes I'll jump up to 1/4 ounce, but very rarely. The 1/8 ounce just gives it that light, subtle fall, and I 90% of the time get hooked up on the fall. So that's basically covering the drop shot. I mean, you can throw a lot of different style baits on it, a lot of finesse style worms. That Reaction Innovations flirt worm is another great one for drop shotting. And then probably last thing I'm going to cover would be some like paddle tail swim bait, something like that. I'm not exactly sure the brand name on these swim heads that I got. I wish I still had a package for one. I'm not 100% sure, but the next time I do pick one up, I will let you guys know in the description. But you can pick these up at a local North 40 if you have one near you. They're just a swim style jig head, and they have like a flat style bottom to them. They work absolutely amazing for staying, basically just staying, you know, like how they should in the water instead of rolling on themselves. A lot of swim baits tend to, you know, as you're reeling them, they'll tend to start rolling over on themselves and swimming all wonky and whatnot. So having that flat face really tends to help. The 130-degree line tie at the nose or whatnot isn't a huge deal, and it seems for this one, having this, you know, the 90-degree at the top really actually seems to help, because you can drag this sucker across the bottom in the dirt, getting that tail to, you know, rough up everything and disturb, to try to, you know, get a good reaction bite out of it. And they just, yeah, they work a lot of the time, and just slow rolling them in the winter months, you know, just something easy for that bass to just come up and just engulf is what they want. So just slow rolling this thing right across the bottom and getting, you know, just a slight tail wobble out of it works wonders. I'm a really big fan with the Kitech paddle tails that they sell, because they have such great action to them, and I tend to barely ever get bit off. Also, they don't rip easy, and they have great action to them. So what not to like, right? You can compare, and I've compared them to a lot of other different brands out there. I mean, you have your, like this guy right here. This is a Strike King Rage Swimmer, and it just doesn't have quite the elasticity that these guys do. They just have way better movement in the water, whereas these are just a little bit stiffer all around. And sometimes that does help, though, and it does come in handy. Like I said, just for getting less action. Sometimes you don't want as much action, so that stiffer, you know, plastic, it definitely does help. So definitely take that into consideration when wanting to throw some swim baits or something, you know, to drag bottom and possibly get that bigger bite. Throw something that's not gonna maybe stir up as much, and then something that maybe will stir up as much, and just figure out, you know, what they're wanting to munch on. So that's another good one to try out. Other than that, Another good one, kind of scrounger, because you can really fish this thing on the bottom also. Same style, kind of thing, and it gives it a little bit different presentation than than this. You're gonna get a tighter wobble to this, whereas this is just you got your tail on it, just back there swimming kind of deal. So this is definitely gonna mimic your bait fish a little bit better, but sometimes you're just switching up the pattern a little bit. Something they haven't seen before is what they really want. So sometimes throwing something different out there is you'll get the bite just that much better. And with that being said, throwing something way different, just going out there and like on a whim throwing maybe a big old chartreuse spinner, or one of my favorites right here, the good old burner, the Strike King burner. I'll throw this guy in a 3/8 ounce, chuck it way out there, kind of the current, let it drift down, and then burn it back to me. Not super fast, but pretty quick, just steady retrieve, just burning it back to me. I like to say burning it because it's a burner. So anyways, it works amazing. And I won't even throw a trailer on there. I won't throw the Brandon and throw a spinner worm on there. I simply throw it just how it is. I trim the skirt up a little bit so it's not hanging way down here. I just trim it up just a tad just to give it a little bit better profile, and I'll just work that thing through the water. Sometimes if I feel just a small bump, I will slow that thing down just a tad, and then I'll stop it just for a second. Let it kind of just barely start floating back. And what that will do is that will fluff up your skirt basically in the water. So as you're burning it back to you, you got to think of that skirt's all folded back just like this over the hook, keeping that basically unexposed, it so that fish really doesn't even notice it, and it's just coming toward you. But then when you go to stop reeling for a second, it's gonna let that skirt come out for a second as it drifts back down. So that's kind of gonna give it that little bit of like a flare, like it realized that it just got hit by something, and basically all you're doing is trying to mimic something, trying to mimic an insect, or a bait fish that just got almost got hit by a fish. So you want to slow that thing down for a minute, but then maybe speed it up right after you slowed it down. So slow it down so it flares out for a minute, and then speed it up so it's like trying to get away. And sometimes, not every time, definitely, but you'll get that second reaction right out of it, and pretty quick too. So you can get that basically that first initial like, I think that might have been a bite, and then, well, maybe it was a bite. Let's slow it down for a second, go back over things, and then bring it back up. And then if nothing, then maybe bring it back through to the same dang thing you just did, or just bring it back through nice and steady, just how you were doing before, and try to keep it that same pattern that you were doing. Basically, as soon as you get a hit, mimic the same pattern, and you'll have fun. You'll have fish in the boat all day, or you should. The bite's going to change, obviously, and there's going to be some different, baits you're going to have to throw around to figure out what it's changed to for a couple hours. So, don't just down it right off the bat. Give it a shot. Go out there, throw something random, like I said. But another one I was gonna just mention real quick before I clock off of here is gold. The gold willow blades on the burner baits, I see tend to work a lot better in a little bit murkier waters. If we're having like some of debris in your water and whatnot, it seems to, I don't know why, but it seems to attract the fish a little bit better. It seems those gold willow blades, or just gold blades in general. But when it's a little bit clearer, it seems those silver blades really tend to shine a little bit more. So keep that into consideration too for the bodies of water that you're fishing. It's like I said, it's going to be different anywhere you go, but definitely don't just you know, stick to one way of fishing. If it works, then yeah, have fun with it, guys. But there's definitely all sorts of different baits you can throw and change, you know, the quality of fish that you're catching. So I thank everybody for tuning in today. I hope this video, guys, you know, helps you a little bit, helps you get out there, throw a little bit more finesse style baits. If you have any questions or comments or anything, you can leave them in my box on Facebook at DBS Fishing Adventures, or you can comment down below. It doesn't matter, whatever you want to, however you want to get a hold of me. I don't mind. And I can answer your questions for you, or I can at least try. But I want to try to kind of come up with a couple more of these, you know, tips and tricks videos to help you guys out, and hopefully get some more fish in the boat. I know we're trying to do the same thing. We always are. But we'll be going over some more, you know, like little bait reviews, things like that. Baits we, you know, tend to end up catching fish on, just little things like that, just to help you guys. And if you want to come visit and, you know, check out my local area and ever fish with me, definitely just leave a DM in my box, and I will be sure to guide you around and help you guys out on, you know, some great areas to fish and some just great overall areas to see. So definitely don't hesitate to message me. So thank you guys once again. And if you like this video, if you find it helpful whatsoever, and if there's any more I can do to help, please leave a big old thumbs up for me and press that subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. Big old shout out to Baker's Tackle Shop for helping me with a lot of my tackle and getting set up. I can't wait for tournament season, guys. It's going to be a blast, and I'm going to take you guys along with almost every single step of the way. We got a new camera guy. I'm pretty jacked, guys. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a blast. And the next time we get out and we do a little bit of fishing, I'll do a video, you know, for you guys to meet the new camera guy, everything. And I'm hoping it starts off with a bang, guys. I really do. I hope this year is going to be fire. So we're going to get out a bunch. Still haven't sold the kayak yet. Not really 100% sure if I'm going to. Might still use it a couple times, so we might get a couple kayaking vids out this year. But we are coming up with a boat, and I've told you guys that before. So we'll see when that happens. Not sure if it's going to be a bass boat yet. Not sure if it's going to be a John boat. We're still trying to decide on that. But either way, we're going to be getting a boat here pretty soon. I'm not 100% sure if it's going to be before the spawn, but I really, really want it to. Obviously, you guys know the struggle, but we're going to try to do what we can. Also, a big old shout out to Favorite for once again sponsoring me for 2019 season and me out big time. So big old shout out to them, and Ted Truly, my favorite manager. He's a great guy, super great, and makes it that much more fun to get out there and go fishing. That's for sure. Especially when you have great people behind you. Also, a big old shout out to Nixon's Marine on their pro staff this year, and going to be fishing some of the Nixon Marine tournaments down in Walla Walla. So it's gonna be a fun year, guys, and I can't wait to bring all you guys around. Yeah, along with us. Anyways, so gonna close this video out. If you liked it, please put a big